The draft is in the books, all 20 picks. It still feels weird to say 20 picks back when I used to do 40 and 50. We're going to continue looking at the players from day 2. We're going to start getting into the players from day 3. Baseball is soon going to be back to its regular schedule, but for now, we are focused on the MLB draft here on Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. 3 days of the draft are done, and why am I so focused on this? Well, by the way, my name is Jeff Ellis. Before I was the host of Locked On Guardians, I was a draft prospect analyst at Scout 24/7. Also did prospects, but was primarily brought in to talk about the draft. Before that, I did that for Indians Baseball / Indians Prospect Insider. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, where it is you get podcasts. Let's re-rack it. Let's just go back and talk about the draft. So day 1, they add Jas Jasik, the potential 5-tool outfielder who, because he's big and white often and athletic, gets compared to Bradley Zimmer. There's also some questions, and it's interesting because some people question the swing. Other people think that he's going to have a plus hit tool. Now, the interesting thing with Jasik is, you can go through and you can look at some of the data, and I should have up like the advanced data. There's a Twitter account I already mentioned where he wrote 500 draft profiles. I'm pronouncing something wrong. Tieran, TIERAN 711, and he's got the TrackMan data. So I like going to his Medium post just because of having that data, the things you don't get to see, the spin rates on hitters, all of that overall data. So if I were to go there and you just look at, the Jasik, he has him 9th on his board. He had the highest runs created plus of anyone in Division 1, which that's more. And for people who had issues with the hit tool, he made contact on 78% of swings this year. 11 of the whiffs came in the first 3 games. And then, now he was facing lesser competition. His chase rate was under 15%, and one of the highest Z swing rates in the country at 77%. Showed a lot of that still in the Cape. And so for all the issues people have with the swing, the advanced data here, the data that not everyone has, I don't have access to it. That's why I've been going and using Tyron's information, shows that the hit tool isn't the concern that people sometimes make it out to be, that it could be a potential plus trait. And, if I were just do the basic stuff and go bring up his BABIP, that would also reflect that. And remember, BABIP, if you're like, hey, I thought that's about luck, it is luck at the major league level. Lower minors in college, BABIP is a tool that actually predicts future success of a hitter. So it is important things to know in that regard. So Jasik is and for the comparison to Zimmer was average when they put a wood bat in his hand and put him in the Cape facing elite competition. Jasik was maybe the best hitter when that same situation happened. So very, very different. After that, Justin Campbell, the large Oklahoma State pitcher. Oklahoma State had 8 pitchers drafted, and none of them showed steps forward through the course of this year. It was one of those things I was definitely looking out for. The Angels drafted Bryce Osmond in the 13th round. He was a guy who could have been drafted as a shortstop or a pitcher out of high school. Hard commit, went to Oklahoma, cost himself a lot of money. He would have been a 7-figure kid if he had not had that hard commit. He is going in the 13th round and is likely to get 100,000-ish. That is, a 7-figure loss, easy. You got to be aware of what you can get it while you can, and then know where you're going. It's one thing if you're going to the programs that are known for pitcher development, but there's most programs aren't. If you're a high school pitcher in particular, take the money and run. Nate Savino, similar story in this draft, who went to Virginia. It's for you, Aaron. I mean, you can look at Savino and Chris Newell. Those are two guys whose stock took major hits going to UVA, thanks to the lack of progression. Is that on the college? No. Sometimes players just don't progress. But there are a lot of programs where, like I said, you look at Oklahoma State, and someone will say, man, they had a lot of pitchers drafted. That's great. I'm like, a lot of pitchers drafted later than where they're supposed to be. Victor Medeiros was supposed to be higher. Like I said, Bryce Osmond was supposed to be higher. Mitchell Stone was supposed to be higher. He didn't even get drafted. Just the progression wasn't there. I mean, Campbell is the same guy he was at the start of the year, and that's fine. That got him drafted where he got drafted, but you're kind of hoping for a little more growth. So they took Campbell, and they took Parker Messick, who is almost like a troll move, because a lot of the negative reports on DeLauder come from when he got destroyed by Messick and Hubart, who are both really funky lefties. Lefties always have problems facing other lefties, and it's such a small sample size that really got blown out of proportion. Yeah, he looked bad against them. Everyone did. Messick needs to get a velocity jump. The Guardians have been good at that to make him more of a potential starter. Good 4-pitch mix, but the fastball is just lacking. Day 3, Joe Lampe, probably a 4th outfield type. Nate Furman, Guy Lincecum Jr., Furman, undersized utility guy. Both of them, plus speed to plus speed, contact skills, walk rates, your prototypical leadoff types. We did not previously, so let's do this here. Talk about Dylan DeLucia, who was one of the folk heroes this past year. He won Most Outstanding Player honors at the College World Series as the Rebels won, as Ole Miss won their first national championship. He permitted 1 run in 16 2/3 innings in Omaha, including a huge 4-hit shutout against Arkansas. He is, he's not the biggest guy. He's not a dominator. Now, what is interesting is one of those things to learn about, and I am still in the process of learning about the importance of this, honestly, myself, is low release points. And the Guardians like a low release point. And, a low release point is something that not everyone talks about, even though we probably all should be, because it seems to be harder. The lower your release point, the harder it is for hitters to pick it up. So on a very basic level, a low release point is probably going to lead to more success for a pitcher. Now, others will argue that, like Cooper Zarte, his release point, and I mean, it's part of my thought, is like no one's had his release point and been a starter. It's a reliever release point. But others are going to say that, no, this is just the beginning of a change. It's the beginning of a shift in how we view these players and how they view themselves. And, that's something to be seen. But this is his first year at Ole Miss. He had been at Northwest Florida State in the JUCO ranks his first 2 years. This past year, 9.91 strikeout per 9. Not the highest number, but still decent. Very close to that 10, which is kind of where we look. Walks per 9, 2.45, very typical Guardian. And what you're going to see, it's interesting, is every time I talk about college pitchers, most of them home run rates over 1. Now, traditionally in the past, I would have looked at that as a warning sign. I'm not anymore. Why am I not? Because it shows a fly ball rate. It shows a tendency to induce balls in the air. And balls in the air do less damage than balls on the ground. Yes, home runs stink, but 9 out of 10 times with balls in the air, it's going to be a positive outcome for the pitcher. If the ball is on the ground, it's probably like 5 out of 10 times that it's a positive outcome for the pitcher. So even though it leads to a greater negativity when it goes wrong at such a lower rate that you're looking at that. And the Guardians drafted a bunch of, frankly, home run prone pitchers, and their own staff has many of them, and it is not a net negative. This is clearly something that they see. I wish I could give you, more information on that. We talked a little bit about it. You can go back and listen to my discussion with Hunter Gaddis, where I bring up my idea on this, and he's like, well, not in that many words, but yeah, that, the idea behind it is sound, and that, the balls on the ground are going to lead to better pitcher outcomes. So what does the advanced stats say on DeLucia? Well, I think I have to go down to his, he's not a top 100 guy on his board, so that kind of swings out. You have to go. The one thing I will say, all the great information, all the advanced data I wish I had, we would say in the parlance, it's blue, may not be safe for work if you follow his. stuff. But again, the amount of information and then just the stuff that I don't have access to. I wish I had access to all the release points and the spin rate and the it's like the data that just isn't there, whiff rates, things like that we don't see. And the knock here is that he didn't have a high whiff rate. The pitches come from a 5.02 release height, which is lower than every MLB starter in the last 2 years. The fastball is the biggest benefactor. The fastball has 15.1 inch vertical benefit, which is more than enough for the high fastball to play given his low release point. Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. He basically, in this piece, for right or wrong, and what he wrote also, and again, you're like, well, why aren't you doing your research here? I don't have this data. I wish I had the data that he has. I don't. But he does a lot of comparisons between Dylan DeLucia, that low release point, and kind of a profile to Joe Ryan of the Twins. So for just kind of an interesting, deep, advanced stat case, my co-host is here saying I should do my own analysis, which is what I always feel like. But I think that it's important to pull out something like this because it's literally not available everywhere. It's I can't go to Baseball Cube or Baseball Reference. It's not in most of the reports. I think I talk about the fact he's got a low, a release point, where it is and what it does. Most people say reliever when they look at DeLucia, but here's someone who had the full set of TrackMan data and pulls out reasons why you think he should be a starter. We're going to take a break. Next segment, I'm going to mention everyone who was taken on day 3. We're going to do kind of our rapid fire thing, and we're going to come back and then in segment 3, talk about the 2 high school players that took all of the monies in day 2. That's why there isn't much to spend, as well as Austin Peterson, who might have been my favorite pick on day 2. All on today's Locked On Guardians. Blue Nile's got you covered. Okay, this is I was on the Locked On Astros show, and I heard their how it talked about Blue Nile, and they're right. Here's the thing about Blue Nile. They are here to support you in the process. Jewelry is expensive. Blue Nile is one of the, even my co-host over here wants to take part in this ad read. They're here to support you throughout the whole process. When it comes to wedding jewelry, fine jewelry, they're trying to advertise to an upper crust clientele. What's the exact phrasing in here? Look, the original online jeweler to high-income adults, primarily males. I normally haven't been saying that, but the Houston guys were. So, hey, if that is what you are, they're looking to try to make your life easier, right? Jewelry is hard. I would never buy jewelry without someone helping me, and Blue Nile is here to help and support you with 24-hour support. They are going to sit there and make sure that whatever you get is exactly what you need. You're not going to buy something for the person you care about, and it's going to be something they're not going to enjoy because you have that additional support. Don't buy jewelry. Don't buy the jewelry that's the same as everything else. Don't buy jewelry that's like part of a chain. Unless it's like a chain piece of jewelry. You know what I mean? Buy something original. Buy something that is one of a kind, and make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on right now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free. Find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So we really haven't talked about the big players here on day 2. That's segment 3. What I'm saying, let's talk about the day 3. So day 3 started with Magnus Ellerts, maybe the best name in the Guardians draft, from Florida Southwestern State College. Probably a reliever, huge dude, good velocity, nice slider. He's a junior age. He's not like super young, but an interesting player. And he's MLB has little notes down the side for some guys, little arrows you click, and only player on day 3 with notes. It's not to say these other guys aren't known. Jas Jasik was one of 3 South Florida pitchers to get drafted. That's Shane McClanahan's former school. He's been hurt. I don't know if it's ever formally confirmed that he's going to need Tommy John, but it was or even what is going to occur. You know, he got hurt at the end of March, hasn't pitched since. Undisclosed upper body extremity. He's going to sign here, probably going to have surgery, not going to see him this year. Tyrese Turner might be my favorite pick right here from USC. Plus runner, all first-team defensive shortstop in the Pac-12, good ball-to-bat skills. I know. It said similar things about a dozen guys in this draft class, which is amazing because there's only 21 picks. But good athlete, good performance, you know, can run. And USC has been honestly poor at development. You don't hear a lot about USC in the baseball draft for a reason. It just, I mean, I know I'm being a jerk when I say things like that, but like, who are the great USC players around the league right now? I can wait. We just don't see. We see guys go there, and I wouldn't recommend. Let's just leave it at that. You know, Kyle Hurt comes to mind. But yeah, it's I'm trying to remember the catcher there was a catcher I really liked who went to the Cardinals. Jeremy. Don't have it. Press Kavanaugh at UNC Greensboro. Probably a backup type. Does a little bit of everything. Solid performer. Athletic traits are average to below, but a solid performer at Greensboro. And I feel like that's a program they go back to. Adam Talak from Arizona State. He's a Canadian kid who, that was his fourth stop. He has bounced around as a fourth-year senior. He's had a new coach every single year because he's moved to a new program every single year. He has missed a ton of bats, but he has walked a ton of guys. And you're hoping you can coach him up. There's something maybe they can see there with him. Left-handed pitcher. Logun Clark. Here's another guy who goes against type, already 19. We know that is something the Guardians had typically avoided. Now they have two 19-year-old kids in this class on top of, you know, the multiple draft-eligible sophomores. Very much going against type with this class. Right-handed bat catcher, good pop times, some power in there. I don't know if he's going to be able to hit for enough to access it, but with his build, being a right-handed bat, being a catcher, I think Logan Clark has a chance to be a bit of a folk hero in the system. Angel Zarte, fifth-year senior out of UNC. Like the stat that stood out was he had 100 hits this past season, and it had been a very long time since a UNC player did that. He's been a centerpiece in that system for a while. Probably, you know, more of organizational depth in the outfield for him there. Zach Jacobs, USC Riverside. I should pull up my Taylor Blake Ward tweeted to me about him. He's San Dimas is an area I often see reports on. He was the San Dimas High School's all-time winningest pitcher. Only pitched 8 innings this year. Could not find confirmation of injury. Let me pause to get the exact scouting report from Taylor. Quote on Jacobs was upper 80s fastball, real spin for a breaking ball. He also had some decent data, I believe, in the Cape Cod. Surprising. But yeah, real weird. There was 8 1/3 innings, and I could not find anything directly on him. What occurred in the 18th, 19th, Geo Rivera Jr. You want to know who's the hardest player to sign? It's right there. He is committed to go to Oregon. He was an interesting player at high school, mid-90s velocity, some really good whip on his arm, has a lot of potential. That's the hardest one. And then Sean Rapp, the 20th rounder, is a very experienced college pitcher, potential plus slider, average fastball. He's thrown a lot of innings, but he's a lefty and could be a fast-moving left-handed pitching candidate in the Guardian system. So, yeah, that is a day 3 in a nutshell. We're, of course, going to get into these guys, all of these guys. We'll get some time in the sun. But first, we're going to take our break, come back, talk about the 2 big-name high school guys, and then the big guy from Connecticut from day 2 of this year's MLB draft. How much do you believe in the Cleveland Guardians? Because right now, BetOnline has them plus 10,000 to win the World Series. If you think they got a chance, you have a chance to make yourself some money by checking out our good friends over at BetOnline. If you're curious to win the pennant, plus 5,000 to win their division, plus 390. So just some things to keep in the back of your mind. How about just to make the playoffs? Cleveland Guardians make the playoffs. No is a minus 275, plus is a plus 215. If this is all things that you are interested in, go check out Bet Online. I find it fascinating. I'm trying to learn more because this, the gambling side of the game has so much more information and is taking in more information and is a great resource, whether or not you gamble or not. But go check out our friends over at Bet Online. It's where I go to get odds, to try to find out more. Again, if you're a sports fan, it is a resource to know, to do, track, and to follow. Check out Bet Online today. So let's start with the birthday boy. And that's right. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't think he necessarily is, but happy birthday to Jordan Humphries, who the Guardians drafted. He was a 17-year-old kid on draft day. Now that we have hit the 20th, he is an 18-year-old adult from Fuquay Varina High School in North Carolina, committed to Campbell University. So looking through stuff on him, it's interesting because like MLB lists 4 pitches, but none mention his curveball. I go and I look at Tyrion's advanced data, and it tells us the curveball is a 3,000 RPM pitch. What does this tell me? One of the things I know well, I am not great at identifying pitches, and the more time I spend around people, at games, scouting, I feel like, don't feel bad if you can't identify what a pitch is. A lot of people really can't. A lot of people mislabel things all the time. And we'll see it even like at that level of like a Fangraphs or something, because the software that is made to label pitches will get it wrong. So, but a 3,000, rotations per minute, that's like what you want to see. Over 3,000 is a really good sign in terms of movement, extra velocity, just hardness to hit. Fastball is low to mid 90s. He's not a big kid. He's 6'1", 200. Again, he's a left-handed pitcher. Young for his class. You're betting on traits, right? When a player is, and he's not the youngest player in this class, that's for sure, but you're looking at the traits. You're saying he's got a workable fastball. He's got a good fastball for a lefty. He's a good athlete. He's shown the capability to throw some off-speed pitches, and then the Guardians will work with him and get that to play up. They took him in the 8th round, the slot value. So let's do a quick re-rack on how this works. Slot values. If the Guardians had drafted me at 16 and offered me $1 and I took it, then that would mean that the other $393,999,999 they'd have free to spend on any other player. That's why I say that often an undersought player is like a trade down, because you're moving that money down to get a player or multiple players. It's like Texas, okay? They decided they didn't like anyone in the top 3. So they used that extra money, they traded down, as it were, and some people thought Kumar Rocker was a top 20 talent, wasn't for me. Some people thought Brock Porter was a top 10 talent, wasn't for me. But instead of getting the number 3 overall talent, on some boards they got 10 and 25. Compare that to like a football draft, and you see what I mean. So the slot there is, I believe, 179,000 where they drafted him. That's not going to get it done. So what happens, though, is, the Lotter's not getting full slot value. He's probably under slot. I don't think they're giving him 3.9. Justin Campbell, he might be near slot. Parker Messick, I think he is probably below slot. Joe Lampe, I think, should be below slot. And then I feel like Furman and Lincecum both have a chance to be below slot. So a lot of that monetary savings is going to go into Santos, who was in the 7th round, Humphries in the 8th, and then Jacob Zibin, who we'll talk about later on, in the 10th. This is an organization that has struggled with left-handed pitcher development. It's good to add more pieces in, see what they can do. Again, he's a lefty who's mid-90s. That's not always an easy thing to find. Good athlete. All of these kids' hero is pointing up. It's always weird to say that, but you're betting more on traits than anything else. Good spin rate data. And, not everyone even has all the high school spin rate data. Like, if we could see that, we'd really have a lot more information guiding us when it comes to these decisions. Let's go to Jacob Zibin. Jacob Zibin is 17 years old and will be for the rest of 2022. He's not going to turn 18 until January of 2023. He is one of the youngest players in this class. He might be the youngest player in this class. He was rumored to be a 7-figure bonus guy His pick value is 151,000. So if the Guardians saved a lot of money, this is where a good chunk's going to go. Mid 90s fastball, really good athlete. Again, key there. The basically comes down to with him is he's this kid who he's a kid. I know they're all kids, but he's 6'4", 218 right now. There's no current plus pitch. Let's see. Yeah, he's like I said, I think I mentioned before, a Canadian kid who moved down and went to the TNX Tel Academy in Florida. Throws multiple secondary pitches. Fastball can be in the mid-90s. And you're kind of, again, much like with Humphries, you're betting on him developing. You're betting on, he's going to add more. Those pitchers are going to improve. They're blank slate types. Listen, they can throw those pitches. I don't know if any of them are plus. I don't know if any of them are going to be plus. My co-host here is mad at me and wants to go to bed. But you're hoping that these players are going to be able to develop. Now, you never know. It's always a big risk, but they have the ability to be more. Sometimes you see guys and there isn't a lot of ways they can improve, get stronger, add more velocity. These are two players that you're betting on. With their youth and where they are, they have already shown good present velocity and spin. And with proper development, you're thinking, okay, they're going to add more. That's a reasonable belief that they could add velocity, they could add movement, they could add refinement to make them all the more deadly. And that is why you draft those two players who are, like I said, in some ways, it's, fresh clay when you're getting a pair of 17-year-olds. Though now 18-year-old, again, happy birthday to Jordan Humphries. And then Austin Peterson. So Austin Peterson didn't make Tyrann's top 500, so I don't have any advanced data. What I do have is a guy who started at Purdue, went to Wabash Valley, and then ended up at Connecticut, and this year was one of the most dominating pitchers in all of college baseball. 147 strikeouts and 110 innings to just 25 walks. That comes out to 11.99 strikeouts per nine and 2.04 walks per nine. Oh, yeah, home run rate over 1. Just, again, consistency. Very consistent in this class. He is missing bats. He is not hurting himself. He's not putting guys on base. In terms of, the best strikeout rate in the Guardians class is Parker Messick, who was 11th in K rate in all of baseball. But if we look at something like just pure strikeouts, like who had the most strikeouts this season, it's kind of a funny one just in general to go pull that out. 1 was Zarte, 2 Drew Thorpe, who I thought would be a target for the Guardians. He ended up Boston, maybe. Peterson 3rd. 2 behind Thorpe and 14 behind Zarte. Messick 5, Justin Campbell 7. Just give you an idea who's in there. There are a few other players that I thought could stack up. But yeah, those are some of the top guys. Just comes to plain simply missing. They missed a lot of bats, and he was successful in that. If I jump over to strikes to walk ratio in all of NCAA baseball last year. Now, again, up and down talent for UConn as part of the Big East. We should probably admit that. It's not exactly a dynamic conference anymore when it comes to baseball. But in terms of K to walk ratio, Messick at 11. Let's see, where is Peterson at 27, and Campbell is in here too, I know. Like all three of them, Campbell at 35. So these three arms were all kind of in the same area in terms of just what they were able to accomplish. Messick did it at the highest level, then Campbell, then Peterson. Peterson's a big kid. He's 6'6". There's a lot of positive traits there. Obviously, going where he is, I'm betting he gets almost full slot. Interesting player. High performer. Let's see, do we have a birthday on him? We do not, so I can't tell you if he was older. I can just tell you, that he has had 4 years. 2019 was his first college season, so he's kind of, he's a junior, but he's senior aged because of that 2020 COVID year. We're still feeling the effects just in some of how these players' timelines are. So he might even be a little bit underslot, but he's been a high level performer. It's a type of high-level performer with high strikeout, low walk that the Guardians have found had been very successful with. He fits that mold of Savale, of Plesac, of Bieber. That is the mold that they have been the most successful with. The high school arms are interesting. They're very far away. Peterson, he, like I said, statistically slots in with the first and second rounder in this year's class. That is all of day 1 and day 2. Tomorrow's podcast, we got some day 3 players to talk about. We're going to dive into this group, really get a chance to get to know everyone that is going to be future high-end prospects for the Cleveland Guardians. Well, maybe not high-end, but just at least solid future prospects. We don't get any games till Friday, so we are going to kind of stay Wednesday, Thursday. This first part of this week is all draft, and then Friday show is before the Friday series. So we're going to kind of talk about what's coming up specifically because, again, I totally missed something. So just with everything else going on. So before I end it, I'll talk about what I missed here. But just to finish my initial thought, I'm doing traveling to see family. I've been back to Ohio with my own kiddos in over a year. So I apologize, but we have already, had many a show, and I hope people are understanding that occasionally we all need breaks. In terms of the roster move, Carlos Vargas was activated. I knew it was around the 17th he'd need to be activated. So to activate him from the 60-day disabled list, he's optioned to the minors. He's not brought up to the roster. Tanner Tully designated for assignment again, second time this year. Not an unsurprising move. Looking at Cleveland's 40-man situation, that now means the only player on the 60-man disabled list is Cody Morris. When he gets activated, they're going to have to pull the plug on someone. I don't know if it's Kirk McCarty. I don't know if it's Anthony Castro. But just at who they have at the various levels, I can't see it being one of the hitters. So it's going to have to be a pitcher. Is it Brian Shaw? Has the bell rung for he? No, Tito's still the manager. But, we at least had one of those 60. Hopefully everyone's going to stay healthy from this point out. I've been Jeff Ellis. This has been Locked on Guardians podcast for this week. Remember to rate and review. Download daily. It helps. I had someone ask about this. Listening is fine. That is, if you're listening every day, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I do mean that. If you want to do help, you don't have to watch me on YouTube. I mean, it's great if you do, and I respond to every comment. Maybe not always timely, but within 2 to 3 days, I think that's pretty timely. Just hitting the subscribe button, and then that's the big thing right now. You can worry about other stuff later, but every subscriber helps. So if you just go click and subscribe on YouTube, but still listen, you're doing me a solid in multiple ways. And then, as always, hit me up with questions on Twitter that are specific mailbag questions. I haven't done a mailbag in a while. Just any questions or ideas. Sometimes, I always talk about Alton gave me that great idea for the failed prospect series. And, sometimes we have the days where rainouts occur. Many of them now. So I'm always looking for more content. But again, thank you to everyone who listens, subscribes, does your part. Let's break the top 10. We were so close, just so close. The top 10 is only based on downloads. So just download daily, and you'll help me. Maybe we can get in. I've been Jeff Ellis, been the Locked On Guardians podcast for Wednesday. Happy birthday, Jordan Humphries, and go Guardians, go.